Well, good morning, everybody, and happy Independence Day. I hope you have a blessed July 4 and just a wonderful time celebrating the freedoms we enjoy here in America. And be thankful there is no alien invasion happening. And for those of you who don't have a clue what that means, go watch the movie Independence Day. But anyway, today we are in Psalm 120. And you may have noticed we skipped Psalm 119, which is the longest chapter in the Bible by far. And what we have done is we've divided Psalm 119 into several sections that we read 2 or 3 sections a year, and over 3 years we read all of Psalm 119. That's the reason we've skipped it, and we've gone on to chapter 120, Psalm 120. And you may notice under the heading that this is described as a song of ascents, or some will say psalms of ascents, because psalms were songs. They were poetry that people would sing in worship. That's what most of the psalms were. And beginning with 120, there's 15, this one and the next 14 psalms are called psalms of ascents, because these were psalms that worshipers would sing either on their way when they were traveling to Jerusalem for one of the 3 annual festivals that people traveled to Jerusalem and to the temple for. So as they were traveling, they would sing these psalms. That's why they're called ascents, because remember, biblically, you always go up to Jerusalem, up to the temple, and come down from Jerusalem, down from the temple, in part because Jerusalem and the temple were on a hill, but also, and more importantly, because it was the central part of Judaism. So you go up. So these are songs of ascents as they made their way to Jerusalem and to the temple for those festivals. Also, they probably sang some of these as they were going up the steps from the one courtyard to the next courtyard in the temple, and maybe the priest, or the Levites rather, who were like a choir, would stand on the steps during these festivals and sing some of these songs. So when you read these, you're actually reading something that centuries ago, centuries even before Jesus, faithful Jews would sing as they were making their way to the temple for these big national holidays, festivals. And that makes some of this mean more to us when I think we can see it through their eyes. Well, Psalm 120, the author describes the fact that he, and like all of us at some point in life, have been hurt or injured by others in verses 1 and 2 because they've lied about us, or they've spread rumors and gossip, half-truths and innuendos, and that's hurtful. And he talks about that, and he turns to God for deliverance. And in verses 3 and 4, the judgment that those who have wronged him deserve will fall on them. And he talks about arrows. And in Scripture, lies are described as piercing like an arrow, cutting like a sword, and in a sort of a word play, those who have lied about him and pierced him with arrows and the swords of a lie, they will be judged in the same way. Their judgment will feel like being pierced by an arrow, feel like being cut by a sword. And he's basically saying in verses 3 and 4, your sin will find you out. Those who have told lies about him, their sin will catch up with them. And it's a biblical teaching that sin always catches up with us. It will find us. Proverbs 12:22 says that lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. Boy, our culture needs to hear that. Our politicians need to hear that. Some of our leaders need to hear that. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. But knowing all that, it still doesn't take away the pain when someone lies about you or misrepresents who you are or something you did. Now, verses 5 and 6, let's read that together. He says, woe is me, for I sojourn in Meshech. I dwell among the tents of Kedar. Too long has my soul had its dwelling place with those who hate peace. What's he talking about there? Well, he's using an analogy to describe how he feels. Meshech and Kedar were two separate people groups living in 2 different places, not in Israel. They were on opposite ends, far away. So if I was living in, say, Nebraska, Kansas, Indiana, somewhere. I might say it's like California, or New York, opposite ends from me. And what he's saying is when people lie about you, sometimes it creates this sense of isolation and confusion, and it's like you're living over here in a place that you don't know. You're not, rather than being home, you're out here in La La Land. You're out here in California. You're over here in Nutsville. You're in New York, so to speak, and you're not home, and you're living among people you don't understand and people who don't like you and who are different. He says sometimes the impact of lying is it just robs you of your peace. There in verse 6. And the people who lie about you, they're stirring up trouble. They're creating problems. They don't want peace. They love turmoil. They love creating pain and problems for you. And so for a season, it's like you're living in that place. And their lies are defining you in some ways. And then in verse 7, he said, I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. He says, my heart's desire, my longing is to live a peaceful life. And if we're going to experience peace in life, there's a lot that goes into it. But something that definitely goes into a piece of life, a life of peace instead of a life of war and conflict, is to just don't lie about people. Don't exaggerate things about people. Don't spread innuendo or gossip or rumors about people. Just be a person of peace. And sometimes the best way to do that is to close your mouth and not lie. That's pretty biblical. It's pretty New Testament. It's pretty Jesus, isn't it? And let me say something practically for all of us. Sometimes, in church, we try to be so nice, and sometimes people are saying things, and we listen to them out of compassion, and we don't agree with them, but they take your listening as agreement. And so you have to be gentle and sometimes say, I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree with that. Or I hear what you're saying, but I think there's a good explanation. Let's find out that explanation. Because if you don't, they will take you being nice as agreeing with them. And what does that do? It just spreads the conflict and it spreads the lie. Sometimes you have to be proactive, not just nice, when people are saying things they shouldn't say. So on this Independence Day, we want peace in America. And we're thankful for the men and women who serve in the military and who have given their all so that we can live in this free country. But we're also to have not only peace with God, but as far as possible within us, peace with others. So watch what you say and maybe say less. That's the word for today. I'll see you tomorrow as we look at Psalm 121. And again, happy Independence Day, everybody.